Hello and welcome. You are listening to the Happya Life podcast. I'm your host, Clare Deacon. After deciding survival wasn't enough, I set out on a path to live my best life. I wanted to thrive. Now I'm on a mission to support others. Think you're not good enough, confident enough, brave enough? I'm here to tell you you are, and you can achieve anything. This is your time, so let's do this. Welcome back to the Happya Life podcast. I'm Clare Deacon, your trauma-informed therapist, positive psychology coach, and the founder of Happya. And today we're diving into something that so many women whisper to me privately, often with a mix of embarrassment and exhaustion. And that is, I should feel proud of how far I've come, but instead I feel like a fraud. If you've ever felt like you're pretending or waiting to be found out, or worried that someone will tap you on the shoulder one day and say, sorry, you don't belong here, then this episode is for you. And I just want to say this up front, that you're not failing and you're not broken and you're certainly not the only one. In fact, for women who have lived through trauma, especially the subtle, relational, long-term kind, imposter syndrome doesn't just whisper. It shouts, it fills the room, and it really can make even the biggest of wins feel like accidents or luck. And I want to help you understand why. So before we dive in, let's all take a breath. Take a breath with me. If you're walking, driving, or doing the dishes, just soften your shoulders just a little. Take a deep breath in through your nose and exhale. Because this conversation might hit close to home for some of you, and that's okay because you're safe here. So let's start with the truth most people don't talk about. Imposter syndrome doesn't come from a lack of ability. It comes from a lack of safety. The kind of safety that trauma steals, the kind of safety you've had to rebuild piece by piece. Most people define imposter syndrome as the belief that your achievements are because of luck or timing, not your skill, and that everyone else has overestimated you. That's true, but it's not the whole story. For many women, imposter syndrome is actually a survival adaptation. For years, sometimes decades, your brain was wired to scan for danger, for criticism, expectations of others, and emotional shifts, emotional changes. You become highly attuned to other people's reactions, to staying in the right role and to not rocking the boat. And that's how you stayed safe. So, of course, when you step into something new, a promotion, a new relationship, therapy, healing work, a creative project, setting boundaries, being seen, your nervous system connects. It goes, wait, this is unfamiliar. This is visibility. This is exposure. And exposure has never been safe. This is not a confidence problem. It's an identity wound, a belonging wound, a safety wound. If you've lived most of your life performing roles, the helper, The strong one, the fixer, the calm one, the peacemaker. It can make it more difficult than stepping into that fuller, more truer version of yourself. It's like taking the mask off, stepping into a world where you can feel naked, you can feel seen, you can feel vulnerable. And when you've lived in survival mode, vulnerability feels like danger. And I want to tell you a quick story here, a personal one to me. So, years ago, before Happier existed, before I trained in trauma, before I rebuilt my life and my identity from the inside out, I was doing everything I could to keep going. I was capable. I was functioning. I was doing all of the right things. And from the outside, I looked fine. But inside, I felt like I was acting my way through my own life. Like everyone else had got the manual on how to be an adult, how to be confident, how to be normal. And I was somehow improvising. And even as I started healing, even as I rebuilt myself after the loss of my husband, I would sometimes look at the progress I was making and think, who am I to be doing this? Who am I to be getting back up? Who am I to be finding growth? The fact that I have a business now that I called Happier um, can be jarring to that belief of who do I really think I am. But all of that isn't my truth that's speaking. That was a part of me that had learned very early that being strong meant hiding who I really was, that being capable meant performing so that I could go unseen. I understood that being seen wasn't always safe for me. So trust me when I say I get it. Imposter syndrome after trauma has layers, and maybe this is true for you too. Maybe you've rebuilt parts of your life. Maybe you've worked so hard to survive that now, when your life asks you to thrive, part of you freezes. Maybe you look around at the life you're creating and it feels unfamiliar. And unfamiliar feels scary, not stable, not safe. So let's slow this down and unpack why trauma makes imposter syndrome louder. When you grow up in environments where you had to adapt constantly to moods, expectations, criticism, silence, unpredictability, you learn to disconnect from yourself. You learn to read the room instead of your own needs. You learn roles instead of identity. Let that sit for a moment. You learn roles instead of identity. And this is exactly what your you ecosystem speaks to. That painful moment where you realize you've been everything to everyone else except for yourself. That sense of losing touch with who you are or what you want or where you're going. That disconnection is a core part of why imposter syndrome feels so overwhelming now. One of the most challenging questions clients find is when I ask them, what do they want? They may have a list of things that they don't want, actually knowing what they do want feels more distant. It feels harder to get to grips with. And it really shouldn't be that way. Trauma teaches you to doubt your own perception, to question your worth, to earn your belonging, to shrink yourself so you can fit. So when you step into your adult life where you're meant to trust yourself, advocate for yourself, believe in yourself, you can feel wobbly, like you're walking in someone else's shoes. You're not faking anything. You're just not used to being the main character in your own life. From the power reset, we know this pattern well. The inner critic isn't actually trying to bully you, it's trying to protect you from being seen, judged, or rejected. It's trying to keep you small enough to stay safe. But the cost is that you end up doubting your potential, downplaying your achievements, and questioning your place in rooms you've earned your way into. Let me share another story, one from a client through. So, I'm going to change her details. Let's call her Maya. She had rebuilt her life after a really painful chapter, years of caring for others, ignoring herself, losing parts of her identity in being in survival mode. She got a new job, a good one she worked incredibly hard for. But every morning before walking into the office, she'd sit in her car and think, they're going to realize I'm not good enough. She'd over prepare, overthink, and overwork. Not because she wasn't capable, she absolutely was, because her nervous system was still living in the past. It was still living inside a story where she had to earn the right to exist in the room. When I asked her what she feared most, she didn't say failure, she said being seen. And that's the core of trauma driven imposter syndrome. It's not a fear of failing, it's fear of being fully visible because visibility brings risk. Visibility invites attention. Visibility requires an identity. And if you haven't been allowed to form a clear identity, if you've been molded by others' needs and expectations or reactions, then of course, visibility feels terrifying. Here's the part that's rarely talked about. Trauma doesn't just take away your safety, it takes away your sense of self, who you are, what you want, what you need, what you believe in, what feels true for you. And when you don't have a stable sense of self, you feel like an imposter in your own life. Let's slow this down for a minute. Think about the last time you achieved something at work, in therapy, in your healing, as a parent, in your business, in your relationships, anywhere. Something you should have been proud of. What was the first thing your mind did? Did it celebrate? Or did it minimize? Did it say, I did that? or it's not a big deal. Anyone could have done it. This is what happens when you've spent too long performing roles instead of living as yourself. Your achievements don't land in the body, they don't register as truth. They hit an internal wall, a wall built from years of disconnecting from your voice, your needs, and your value. And that's why imposter syndrome is so tied to identity. Inside the power reset work, we talk about how when you've been everything to everyone else, you forget who you are underneath it all. You start living from scripts, not self. You start performing instead of belonging. You stay small because being small used to be safe. And when you try to grow, your nervous system sounds the alarm. So, how do we begin to shift this? How do we soften the fear of being seen? How do we build self trust when trauma taught us to mistrust ourselves? We don't do it by pretending to be confident. We don't do it by pushing through the fear. Those are strategies for different situations. And we definitely don't do it by shaming ourselves for struggling. We do it by creating internal safety, by reconnecting to ourselves, by rebuilding identity from the inside out. I want to give you 3 steps, gentle ones, and not the whole deep dive. That's the work that we do in the power reset and in one-to-one work. But these will give you enough to help you take the next breath forward. So first, name pattern. Imposter syndrome thrives in silence. The moment you name it, this is fear, not fact, it loosens its grip. And when you name it with compassion, not judgment, your system begins to relax. It can let go. This is you saying, I see you, we're safe. Second, come back into your body. Imposter syndrome isn't just a thought, it's physiological, it's a reaction, it's a tight chest, shallow breath, pressure in your stomach, frozen shoulders. It's your body preparing for threat. So place a hand on your heart or your abdomen. Breathe gently and remind your nervous system we're safe. I'm allowed to be here. Thirdly, track your truth. I call this a self-trust log. Every day, write down one thing you handled, one thing you learned, one moment you showed up. Your brain needs evidence, and your life gives you evidence every single day, but you have to collect it. These steps won't fix imposter syndrome instantly, but they will help your body learn safety again. And when your body feels safer, your identity has room to grow. Before we wrap, I want to speak directly to the part of you that still wonders if you belong, that still whispers, who am I to be doing this? You are not an imposter. You are a survivor. And survivors aren't frauds. They are resilient, courageous, resourceful, innovative, and powerful. Survivors build lives out of rubble. Survivors learn to trust themselves again. Survivors lead not because they've never fallen, but because they've learned how to rise. If this episode is landing deeply, if it feels like I'm describing something you've never quite had words for, then I want to invite you into a conversation, not into a program, not into a sales pitch, but into a conversation. Book a complimentary chat with me. The link is in the show notes. This is the space that all of the piece of work that I do around identity and you was created for. It's a quiet, honest moment where you can talk about what's going on inside you, what you're struggling with, what you want, and where you feel lost. A space for real conversation, not scripts, not pressure, just clarity and support. And if you want something gentler before talking to me directly, you can download the free self-reflection map. It's a starting point for reconnecting with who you are underneath the noise, the roles, the survival patterns. You'll find the link in the show notes. You don't need to be fixed. You don't need to pretend. You don't need to earn your worth. You just need to come home to yourself slowly, gently, and bravely. You are not an imposter. You're a woman who's rising, and I'm right here with you. I'll see you next week. If you've enjoyed this episode, ensure you hit subscribe, head on over to my website, happiercoach.com, sign up for the weekly newsletter, and let me support you in living a happier life. I'm your host, Clare Deacon. Thank you for listening. Have a fabulous day.